Black CEO, mocked. By Billionaire family minutes later, she kills their $500M deal. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Hey, Blackie, go serve the drinks. The words sliced through the ballroom like a broken violin note, sharp, ugly, vibrating against chandeliers worth more than most people's homes. Conversations didn't just pause, they crumpled in midair. Champagne flutes froze halfway to painted lips, and laughter too much, too loud, burst from the cluster of guests dressed in satin and wealth. At the center of it all stood her. Zariah Wells, 45, CEO, billion-dollar quiet force, and the woman they had just mistaken for help. She wore a soft, blush-colored gown, elegant without screaming for attention, the kind of subtle luxury old money often failed to recognize. Her posture didn't twitch, her expression didn't crack. Her eyes lifted only slightly, catching the reflection of chandeliers above like fragments of resolve. But the group in front of her, 6 members of the Rothmore billionaire family, didn't see resolve. They didn't see power. They didn't see caution. They saw a black woman standing alone, and something about that made them bold. One of the women, blonde, in a navy gown dripping with crystals, pointed at Zariah's face as if she were summoning a maid. "Oh my God, she's ignoring me," she laughed. "Should we clap so she hears, or do they respond to whistles?" Another round of laughter erupted behind her men in tailored tuxedos, shaking their heads amused. A couple even pulled out their phones, subtly recording the moment like it was party entertainment. Zariah didn't respond. Instead, she lifted her phone to her ear, not rushed, not rattled, just a slow, fluid motion that implied she had far more important things to focus on than a room full of spoiled privilege. Blonde girl scoffed loudly. "Oh, she's calling backup? Cute. Should we tip her after?" More laughter. The ballroom marble floors, cascading drapery, crystal light became a stadium, their cruelty the opening act. Strings from the live orchestra drifted through the room, elegant, oblivious. It was absurd, the contrast. Beauty and brutality sharing the same polished air. Zariah pressed her thumb to the phone screen. It lit up softly. Before she spoke, a quiet, cinematic voice filled the space, not aloud, but through the story itself. "Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story." Blonde girl leaned closer, mischief gleaming in her eyes. "Say hi to your manager," she taunted. "Tell them to send someone who actually belongs here." Her friends cracked up again. The orchestra's volume swelled, almost mocking. Champagne bubbles hissed faintly at the rim of crystal glasses. But then, something strange occurred. The laughter began to thin. Not disappear, not stop, just thin. Because Zariah wasn't shrinking. She wasn't flustered. She wasn't fighting back. She was listening. Her face remained unreadable as the person on the call spoke. Her eyes didn't drift toward the Rothmores. She stood in the center of their mockery as if rooted by something deeper, heavier, more significant than the shallow cruelty circling her. What unnerved the crowd wasn't her silence. It was the fact that the silence belonged to her. Blonde girl folded her arms. "Are you seriously taking a phone call right now?" Zariah lowered the phone slightly, not enough to end the call, just enough for the crowd to see her profile, and the room temperature shifted. Not cold, not warm, just poised. As if something in the air, something invisible, something powerful was slowly taking form behind her stillness. One of the Rothmore men leaned to another. Who even invited her? The woman in navy stepped closer. Too close. "You know what, sweetie? If you're lost, I can show you where the staff enters. It's through the back." Still, Zariah didn't react. Her thumb hovered above her phone's, screen not trembling, not hesitant, purposeful, almost mechanical, almost dangerous. Because what no one in that ballroom realized, not the laughing guests, not the whispering couples, not even the smug Rothmores, was that at this exact moment, on the other end of that call, $500 million waited for her command. She inhaled slowly, letting the breath settle. Then she spoke soft, controlled, surgical. Proceed. One word, barely above a whisper, but enough to pivot the fate of everyone standing before her. Blonde girl blinked. What did you say? But Zariah was already raising the phone back to her ear, eyes steady, posture like quiet lightning. And somewhere far from chandeliers, far from silk gowns and careless laughter, an entire deal began to unravel thread by thread, because they had just humiliated the wrong woman, the woman who owned the deal, the woman who controlled their fate, the woman they never should have pointed at, Zariah Wells. And the night had only begun. The orchestra kept playing, but something in the room had gone still. Not silent, not frozen, just off, the way a chandelier flickers a fraction too long before anyone notices. Zariah lowered her phone with the same unhurried grace she had held from the moment the insult struck the air. But around her, the gala's atmosphere began to thin, like someone had punctured the arrogance in the room and the pressure was quietly leaking out. The Rothmores didn't sense it yet. Privilege had always made them slow to feel danger. Blonde girl tilted her head, still amused, still confident that the night belonged to her. What was that? Did you just call the kitchen? She teased. Let them know we're still waiting for refills. Behind her, two men in tuxedos chuckled, raising their glasses like the cruelty was part of the entertainment package. But a few guests standing farther away, the ones not drunk on arrogance, began to exchange glances. The way Zariah held herself didn't match someone who had been humiliated. It matched someone who wasn't affected at all, someone who lived above this room, above this family, above this noise, someone who had just initiated something. A man near the bar whispered, "That wasn't a call to staff. Look at her face." Another woman replied quietly, "She's too calm. Something's wrong." In the corner, an elderly couple paused their conversation, watching the scene with growing unease. Even the servers passing by with champagne trays moved more cautiously, sensing a shift in the energy one they couldn't name but instinctively respected. The Rothmore matriarch entered next, draped in emerald satin, diamonds cascading down her ears like frozen waterfalls. Her presence rang like a bell through the ballroom. Guests straightened, postures corrected, the social gravity bending around her. "What's going on here?" she asked, voice cool. Blonde girl wasted no time. "Oh, mother, you'll love this." I told her she jabbed a thumb at Zariah to help serve drinks because she was just standing here doing nothing, and she ignored me. Then she had the nerve to take a call. The matriarch's lips curled faintly. "Well, some people don't understand etiquette." A murmur of agreement rolled through their circle. But deeper in the room, the unease continued to spread like an invisible tide. Someone noticed the event director at the far end, checking her phone, then freezing as a notification flashed across the screen. Someone else noticed the Rothmore's finance advisor pacing near the exit, whispering into his earpiece with sudden urgency. None of it reached Blonde Girl, or her mother, or the men still smirking behind them. Privilege also made people blind. Zariah didn't look at any of them. Instead, she slowly lifted her gaze to the chandeliers, crystal structures cascading from the ceiling like inverted palaces of light. Their reflection danced across her face, revealing calm in every contour. Not anger, not fear, not shame. Control. Complete control. Blonde Girl misread it entirely. "Oh, don't look so dramatic," she said, stepping closer. "We're just having fun. Besides, you should be grateful you're even allowed in this room." That was the moment the shift became visible. Not loud, not explosive, subtle, but absolute. The murmurs stopped, the laughter quieted, the air tightened as if someone had pulled a string through the center of the ballroom and every heartbeat aligned around it. A young man in a tux whispered, "Shay's not staff. Look at her posture." Another replied, "Shay's someone." Blonde Girl finally sensed hesitation around her and turned to her circle. "What?" she demanded. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" No one answered. "Oh, don't look so dramatic," she said, stepping closer. "We're just having fun. Besides, you should be grateful you're even allowed in this room." That was the moment the shift became visible. Not loud, not explosive, subtle, but absolute. The murmurs stopped. The laughter quieted. The air tightened as if someone had pulled a string through the center of the ballroom and every heartbeat aligned around it. A young man in a tux whispered, "She's not staff. Look at her posture." Another replied, "She's someone." Blonde girl finally sensed hesitation around her and turned to her circle. "What?" she demanded. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" No one answered. "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Zariah. She stood in the soft glow of the chandeliers, her blush-colored gown catching strands of light, her posture steady as marble. She wasn't looking at the Rothmores anymore. She didn't need to. Her focus was elsewhere, somewhere deeper, older, carved from years of climbing through doors people tried to slam in her face. Because this moment, this sting of public humiliation wasn't unfamiliar. She had lived versions of it her entire life. And the room, unknowingly, was about to witness exactly how a woman shaped by those battles responds. Blonde girl finally noticed the way her mother tensed and frowned. "What? Why is he acting like the sky is falling?" The matriarch didn't answer. "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Zariah. She stood in the soft glow of the chandeliers, her blush-colored gown catching strands of light, her posture steady as marble. She wasn't looking at the Rothmores anymore. She didn't need to. Her focus was elsewhere, somewhere deeper, older, carved from years of climbing through doors people tried to slam in her face. Because this moment, this sting of public humiliation wasn't unfamiliar. She had lived versions of it her entire life. And the room, unknowingly, was about to witness exactly how a woman shaped by those battles responds. Blonde girl finally noticed the way her mother tensed and frowned. "What? Why is he acting like the sky is falling?" The matriarch didn't answer. "Then who the hell is she?" someone snapped. The director swallowed. "Her name is Zariah Wells." The name hit the air like a dropped glass, small, sharp, unmistakable. A few guests nearby gasped softly, the first real crack of recognition spreading through the room. Blonde girl frowned, annoyed. "Why does that matter?" The finance director stared at her the way a person looks at someone standing on the tracks while the train is already visible. "Because," he said quietly, "Zariah Wells is the controlling investor in the Rothmore global acquisition. The $500 million deal your family has been trying to close for 8 months. Blonde girl froze. The matriarch's breath caught. She remembered being 16, working nights at a diner while memorizing financial tables. She remembered the professors who told her no one would ever trust a black woman with billions. She remembered the bankers who assumed she was the assistant, not the client. She remembered every door she had been shut out of until she learned how to buy the buildings that held those doors. Every memory sharpened her spine. Every scar steadied her breath. Back in the present, the Rothmores looked at her with a new expression, not arrogance, not amusement, but fear. Blonde girl stumbled over her words. "Mother, did we just insult the wrong person?" The matriarch didn't answer. She didn't need to. She remembered being 16, working nights at a diner while memorizing financial tables. She remembered the professors who told her no one would ever trust a black woman with billions. She remembered the bankers who assumed she was the assistant, not the client. She remembered every door she had been shut out of until she learned how to buy the buildings that held those doors. Every memory sharpened her spine. Every scar steadied her breath. Back in the present, the Rothmores looked at her with a new expression, not arrogance, not amusement, but fear. Blonde girl stumbled over her words. "Mother, did we just insult the wrong person?" The matriarch didn't answer. She didn't need to. The Rothmore matriarch tightened her grip on her emerald clutch, eyes pinned on Zariah with a dawning horror she didn't dare vocalize. She wasn't a fool. She had lived long enough in the world of wealth to recognize the aura of someone who could unmake her. But the others, they were slower. Blonde girl, still clinging to the arrogance of the moment before she understood the stakes, took a shaky step forward. Okay, hold on, she said, forcing a laugh that wobbled at the edges. Just because she has the same name doesn't mean she's that Zariah Wells. I mean, look at her, she's dressed like... She stopped herself, but too late. The implications still slithered into the air, like she doesn't belong here, like she's beneath us. A ripple of discomfort spread through the surrounding guests. Even those who had enjoyed the earlier mockery now felt the sting of second-hand embarrassment. The humiliation had shifted, not toward Zariah, but toward the Rothmores. The finance director stepped closer, voice stiffer than his tux collar. No, it's her. I've seen her in briefings. And the legal team confirmed just now she's the controlling investor. Without her signature tonight, the acquisition dies. Blonde girl's face drained so fast it was almost cinematic. But she didn't say anything. She didn't have to, the director murmured. The matriarch exhaled slowly, crystal earrings trembling. Her voice lowered into something sharp and dangerous. What exactly did you say to her? Blonde girl swallowed hard. Nothing serious. Her eyes flicked toward Zariah. I thought she was one of the staff. The matriarch closed her eyes as if bracing for impact. That, she whispered, is a catastrophic mistake. But the room hadn't finished tightening around them. A young server hesitated nearby, eyes wide, overhearing just enough to realize something monumental was collapsing. He wasn't alone. Guests who had been filming earlier now quietly lowered their phones, sensing the shift in power dynamics. A man in a burgundy tux muttered, "She's really the investor? Damn. I hope the family didn't." "Oh, they did," another whispered. "We all heard it. The humiliation had inverted, and now the Rothmores were the spectacle." The matriarch straightened her back, summoning every ounce of old money composure. "Stop staring," she hissed at her daughter. "Fix it! Fix it!" blonde girl squeaked. "How?" "Apologize," the matriarch snapped. "Now," blonde girl turned stiffly toward Zariah, but every step felt like walking into a blade. Her earlier confidence evaporated, replaced by a tremor in her hands that champagne couldn't disguise. She approached Zariah, slow, timid, unrecognizable from the girl who had commanded the room moments earlier. "Hi!" she stammered, voice cracking. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to." Zariah didn't turn. She didn't nod. She didn't acknowledge her. She simply continued reading the notification on her phone. That silence, more cutting than any insult, made blonde girl's breath stutter. She looked back at her mother helplessly. The matriarch stepped in, swallowing the bitter taste of desperation. "Miss Wells," she said, her voice smooth but trembling at the edges. "Had we known who you were?" This never. Zariah raised her eyes. "Just that." And the matriarch froze mid-sentence. Because the look Zariah gave her was not angry. It was not emotional. It was something far worse for people, like the Rothmores. It was indifferent. The look of someone who had already decided. Behind them, another phone buzzed. Then another. Then two more. The Rothmore men scrambled to check the alerts. Their faces paled in sync. "Mother," one whispered, "the lawyers are saying the investor just withdrew the signing authorization." Another added, "The banks are flagging the transaction. They're asking if the deal is collapsing." The matriarch's jaw trembled. No, that deal is essential, without it." But she didn't finish, because at that exact moment, Zariah took a single step forward. A slow, elegant step that shifted the center of gravity in the entire ballroom. And every eye followed. The matriarch felt something she hadn't felt in decades. The loss of control. Blonde girl whispered, barely audible, "Mom, what do we do?" The matriarch swallowed, voice nearly breaking. "We pray," she said quietly, "that it isn't too late." But it was. Because their mistake wasn't calling her the wrong name. It wasn't assuming she was staff. It wasn't even the racism laced into every word. Their real mistake was simpler. They believed she needed them. And that above all was the assumption that was about to destroy them. The ballroom lights glittered like nothing was wrong, but the people beneath them were unraveling. Zariah's calm presence had become a quiet pressure, reshaping the room without a single raised voice. Around her, whispers collided like gusts of wind, soft, frantic, clumsily trying to understand what had shifted. The Rothmore men stepped aside, checking their phones with trembling hands. The finance director hovered near the family like a failing shield, sweat building along his hairline. Blonde girl clutched her champagne flute as if hydrating would fix the panic tightening her ribs. And Zariah, she simply breathed, not heavily, not shakily, just a slow, measured inhale like someone who had spent years mastering how to stay composed while storms tried to swallow her. The matriarch finally stepped forward, forcing her voice into something resembling strength. "Miss Wells," she said, "I believe there has been an unfortunate misunderstanding. If you would allow us to clarify." Zariah didn't turn. Not yet. Instead, she lifted her phone again. The screen glowed faintly against her complexion, soft but sharp, the way moonlight glances off steel. A few guests saw it and gasped, because they remembered that single whispered word earlier. Proceed. And now the world around them was beginning to respond. Across the ballroom, the Rothmores advisory team burst through a side door, 2 lawyers, 1 investment strategist, and the COO of their holding company. Their faces were carved from panic. They scanned the room desperately until their eyes landed on Zariah. The COO mouthed something silently. It looked like, "Oh my God." He rushed to the matriarch, whispering urgently, "Mom, the deal, the entire acquisition, something's happening." Bank B just froze their end. "Our partner fund pulled the safety net. And our bridge loan, what about it?" the matriarch demanded. "It's gone, canceled, effective immediately." Blonde girl dropped her champagne. It shattered across the marble floor, shards scattering like broken pride. People stared. No one moved. The weight of a $500 million collapse hung above the ballroom like a chandelier waiting to fall. Blonde girl's voice trembled. "Someone fix it! Just call whoever's in charge!" The COO swallowed. "She is," he whispered, nodding toward Zariah. The matriarch's face tightened, decades of wealth and entitlement, folding under something she couldn't overpower. She stepped closer to Zariah, choosing softer words, the kind reserved for royalty, donors, and people who could ruin you with a signature. "Miss Wells, please, let's talk. Privately." Zariah finally turned, slow, steady, devastating. Her gaze met the matriarch's with the cold composure of someone who had already moved 3 steps ahead. She didn't need anger. She didn't need theatrics. Her silence was its own verdict. And then the phone buzzed. One soft vibration. Zariah looked down. A new notification slid across the screen. "Pays 1 complete. Contract access revoked. Authorization pulled from counterparty." The Rothmores wouldn't understand all the terminology, but they understood one thing perfectly. The deal was dying. Blonde girl staggered backward. "No, no, 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 this can't be because of a joke." Zariah's eyes shifted toward her, calm and precise. "A joke," she repeated softly. "Is that what you call public degradation?" Blonde girl opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because now she could feel it. The gravity of her words, the arrogance of her assumptions, the catastrophic consequence of mocking someone she didn't bother to understand. She whispered to her mother, desperate, "Tell her we're sorry. Tell her we didn't mean it. Tell her something, anything." The matriarch faced Zariah again, voice cracking despite her efforts. "Miss Wells, please, we cannot lose this deal. Our company, our employees, our future." Zariah lifted the phone an inch, a gesture small enough to seem polite, sharp enough to silence the world. "Your family," she said, "made a decision." She tapped the screen once. "And now, I'm making mine." Before anyone could speak, her phone vibrated again. Phase 2 initiated. Full deal termination in progress. The ballroom felt it, the shift, the impact, the beginning of the end. And the Rothmores finally understood. They hadn't insulted a stranger. They had insulted the woman who could take $500 million and make it disappear with one word. The ballroom began to fracture. Not physically, no chandeliers crashing, no lights flickering, but socially, psychologically, financially. The collapse started quietly, like hairline cracks running under a coat of perfect polish. Yet everyone felt it. The Rothmore men formed a loose circle around their matriarch, their confidence dissolving into frantic whispers. The advisory team huddled near the staircase, checking their screens with trembling fingers. Even the orchestra hesitated between chords, sensing the air tighten around them. But Zariah remained a still point in a spiraling world. Her phone glowed again, casting a soft sheen along her cheekbone. She didn't flinch, she didn't rush. She simply read the update with the calm of someone who'd learned long ago that power is not noise, power is direction. The matriarch finally snapped. "What is happening?" she hissed toward her COO. "I need answers. Now." The COO swallowed hard, voice wavering. "Phase 2 isn't just a withdrawal," he said. "It's a structural pullback. Miss Wells controls the guarantor funds. She's canceling everything tied to this acquisition." Blonde girl clutched her mother's arm. "But why? It was just a joke." Her mother shot her a glare sharp enough to cut. "That joke," she said coldly, "just cost us $500 million. Guests near them shifted uncomfortably. They weren't smiling anymore. Some were already stepping away, as if distancing themselves could protect their reputations from being caught in the fallout. Across the room, one of the Rothmore lawyers stared at his phone before whispering, "Oh, God." She pulled the liquidity anchor. "The other investors are following her lead." Another added, voice cracking, "2 firms just suspended partnership talks. They're backing out because she backed out." A third closed his eyes. "This is a cascade." The matriarch's knees nearly buckled. A cascade. That was the word they feared most. Once one pillar fell, the rest followed like dominoes drenched in gasoline. She turned to Zariah again, forcing a brittle composure. "Miss Wells," she said, "let us correct this. Our daughter's behavior." Zariah raised a hand. A soft, elegant gesture. A gesture that carried the force of an iron gate closing. "This isn't about your daughter," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm, like the surface of water covering something enormous beneath. "It's about a culture you built, a culture you defended, a culture you celebrated tonight." The Rothmores stared at her, speechless. Zariah lowered her hand slowly, the silk of her gown shifting like a tide. "You created this environment," she continued. "The arrogance, the entitlement, the belief that your wealth allows you to decide who deserves dignity." The matriarch opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "And now," Zariah said, "you are experiencing the cost of that belief." Another notification vibrated through her phone. She glanced at it once. "Phase 2 complete. Asset bridges severed. Collateral withdrawals confirmed." The finance director inhaled sharply. That's everything," he whispered. "The entire support structure." Blonde girl stepped forward, trembling. "Please, please, don't do this," she begged. "You can't ruin us over a misunderstanding." Zariah's eyes softened, not with sympathy, but with clarity. "You ruined yourselves," she said. "I'm simply refusing to carry the weight of your decisions." Across the ballroom, another domino fell. A journalist in attendance, someone always hunting for a headline, lowered her glass and quietly slipped her phone from her purse. She wasn't recording. She was reading. A news alert flashed across her screen. "Breaking: major investor pulls out of Rothmore deal. Sources suggest internal conflict." Within minutes, that headline would multiply. The matriarch saw the reporter's expression change and felt her chest tighten. This wasn't a private humiliation anymore. This was public. This was catastrophic. This was irreversible. The COO leaned closer, panic dripping from every syllable. "Mom, if she finalizes Phase 3, our liquidity floor collapses. Everything tied to it evaporates." The matriarch finally whispered the truth she had been refusing to face. "She's going to destroy us." Zariah didn't respond. She didn't need to, because the next vibration of her phone, the one she could sense approaching, would decide exactly how deep the collapse would go. And the Rothmores knew it. Their fate now hung not on their wealth, not on their influence, not on their reputation, but on the decision of the woman they had mocked like she was invisible. The vibration hit Zariah's palm like a quiet drumbeat. She didn't check it immediately. She let the moment breathe, let the panic thicken, let the Rothmores feel the gravity of everything they'd unleashed. The ballroom was no longer sparkling. It was suffocating. Guests drifted backward, forming an instinctive ring around her, as if the air near her carried voltage. The orchestra faltered, bows slipping against strings. Even the chandeliers seemed to hold their light differently, less glamour, more judgment. Then Zariah lifted her phone, one glance, just one, and the world shifted. Phase 3 complete, full termination executed, all counterparty rights revoked. She lowered the phone. That movement, slow, controlled, deliberate, felt louder than the loudest outburst. It drew every eye. It squeezed every heartbeat. It broke every illusion the Rothmores had ever believed about their untouchable wealth. The matriarch stepped forward, her voice no longer commanding, barely even steady. "Miss Wells, whatever happened tonight, whatever my daughter said, please, we can repair this." Zariah turned toward her with the calm of a closing door. "You don't repair character," she said. "You reveal it." Blonde girl's eyes filled with tears she could no longer hide. "I didn't mean I wasn't. It was a stupid moment," she sputtered. "You're going to destroy everything we built." Zariah held her gaze, unflinching. "No," she said softly. "I'm allowing it to fall without my support. There's a difference." Before anyone could respond, the ballroom entrance opened, and Zariah's senior advisor stepped inside, poised, neutral, dressed in black. He scanned the room and then announced, voice clear, echoing against marble, "Ladies and gentlemen, per the instruction of Miss Zariah Wells, the $500 million acquisition is formally terminated." A collective gasp rippled through the room. He continued, "All associated rights, guarantees, and protections have been withdrawn. The Rothmore Group no longer has investor backing." Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. The advisor bowed his head slightly toward Zariah, then stepped aside. The matriarch's composure shattered. "You can't do this," she cried, trembling. "You can't. Our employees, our infrastructure people depend on this deal." Zariah's voice was low, steady, devastating, and I depended on basic dignity. "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." But nothing could resuscitate what had died long before she sat down. The illusion of control. Zariah turned away, silk gown shifting like a tide, leaving them to drown in the consequences they had poured themselves. And the room understood. The woman they mocked had become the force they feared. The collapse came fast. Phones buzzed across the ballroom like a swarm of distant alarms. Notifications lit up the faces of board members, advisors, and shareholders standing among the guests. Every screen showed the same headline: cold, merciless, absolute, Rothmore deal. Voided investor withdraws. Support whispers turned into shock. Shock turned into distance. People stepped away from the Rothmores as if their misfortune were contagious. The COO stopped trying to hide the panic. "Mom!" 3 partners just pulled out. And he checked his phone again, voice choking. "Reporters outside already know. It's spreading." The matriarch looked around the ballroom, the empire she once commanded crumbling under her feet. The room she thought she owned suddenly refused to look at her. The humiliation she planned for someone else had turned into her own stage lights. Blonde girl covered her face, mascara streaking across her cheeks. "What have we done?" she whispered. But the truth was already sealed. The banks would retreat. The investors would scatter. The support system would collapse. And tomorrow morning, the world would read about how one of the wealthiest families destroyed their own future in a single evening. Not because of business, not because of strategy, but because of arrogance. Zariah didn't speak. She didn't gloat. She didn't stay to watch. She simply moved toward the exit, letting the ballroom fall apart behind her. Every step she took reminded everyone watching. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. The night air met her like a quiet reward. Outside the ballroom, the noise faded, the panic, the whispers, the frantic footsteps of a dynasty collapsing under its own weight. The city lights glittered against the smooth glass of the venue, reflections bending across Zariah's gown as she stepped onto the marble terrace. No crowds, no apologies, no spectacle, just silence, clean, earned, and hers. She paused for a moment at the top of the steps, letting the distant hum of traffic settle around her. Inside, the Rothmores were still unraveling. Papers would be signed, statements released, damage assessed. Their empire would limp through the weeks ahead, but none of that mattered here, because the lesson had already been delivered. Zariah lifted her chin slightly, exhaling a breath she had held for years, one shaped by every door slammed, every assumption made, every slight wrapped in silk. Tonight, she didn't need to win. She only needed to walk away. And as she descended the steps, the truth of the evening settled behind her like a closed book. Dignity isn't granted by wealth. It's upheld by those who refuse to let it be taken.